Hey, it's Lisa Rothman, the founder of StopFamilyConflict.com. This week's video is inspired by the slew of parents that I've been working with recently who have been very frustrated because of how slowly their kids are getting out of the house in the morning to go to school and what that does for them in terms of trying to get to work on time when they want to start getting to work, and it spills out and causes all sorts of stress. And when I introduced after empathizing with them about how frustrating that is, and then I introduced the possibility of finding out what their kids' needs are, why they're moving slower than the parents want them to, and start exploring into that territory so they could maybe then integrate their needs with their kids' needs, what I've been hearing back from them is, my kids don't care about my needs. They don't trust that their kids care about their needs. And so I am making a video about what I think is actually going on, what the possibilities are happening, what's actually happening, so alternative approaches, and how actually this might seem like, oh, Lisa, this is not such a big deal getting out of the house. I don't trust that my kid cares about my needs. And actually it points to something I think really profound about what is broken about so many family relationships and what it says about power dynamics, not only between parents and children, but between anyone who has more power and those who have less power. So that is what today's video is all about. Okay, so I can absolutely see with the parents that I've been working with that it appears that their children don't care about their needs. I get it, because it's like they seem like they're just super self-involved with whatever they are doing. They want to go slow. The socks aren't being put on the way they want them. They can't choose an outfit, or it's taking them a really long time to choose an outfit. They seem from the outside, wow, they seem only to be focused on their own needs. But I actually think what's going on here is that it's not that the child doesn't care about the parent's needs. I think the issue started much further back, where the child doesn't actually trust that the parent cares about their needs. Because if we think about what the child's reality is, they are completely dependent on their parent for everything. And they have had so many decisions made for them and not with them, starting, of course, with the fact that they're on the planet in the first place. But when we think about where they live, where they go to school, what the house is like, who else is in the house with them, have they had any say at all in terms of these really big issues that are affecting them, these huge decisions that have been made that they typically have not been involved with at all? So I think, and I'm remembering being a child myself, I had a sense that no adult actually cared about my needs at all. I think that is a child's reality, and I think it's the reality of anybody who is on the receiving end of a bunch of decisions being made for us rather than with us. So as a parent, what is going on? Well, obviously, parents care deeply about their children. They want to contribute to their children. They want to have peace of mind that they're doing everything they can to contribute to their children. And yet, what I see time and time again is that this care does not translate into actually understanding what the child's actual needs are. And I think this happens for a few reasons. I think that in our society, we are conditioned as parents to believe I know best. And I think there's a lot of fear that goes into blocking natural curiosity as a parent, not wanting to screw this up. And just once again, this societal message that the parent needs to know best. And that there's something actually, if the child has a sense that the parent isn't coming from a position of authority, that this is going to cause the child to be profoundly insecure. I think that this is the messaging that goes out. And in my experience, that's actually not the reality. I find that, yes, having a parent who is grounded when they are feeling uncertain and is transparent about that uncertainty and lets the child see into the parent's world of not knowing, that, in my experience, is what results in a child actually feeling far more secure than a parent moving from a place of, I got this, I know what's best for you. Okay, so what happens instead of the curiosity is the parent makes all sorts of decisions about what they think is in the best interest of the child, what the child's needs are. And sure, I get it. It's like getting an education, that's the child's needs, which means they're going to go to a school and the school has a certain start time so that everything can function. If kids are coming in at different times, that makes it really hard for a teacher to actually convey learning. Like there's all sorts of systems and structures that we then need to slot our children and ourselves into in order to make this whole thing work. And that's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of stress on everybody, including the child. And so it's also what I'm saying as I'm talking about this, it's also, wow, I think one of the reasons some parents resist finding out what their children's needs are is because they despair that they would ever, given all this pressure and all the constraints, that they would ever actually be able to come up with solutions that could integrate everybody's needs. So I think that's another reason why parents don't find out what their kids' needs actually are. Okay, so what happens then when the parent makes decisions without checking with the child? And I'm talking about even really little kids. What happens then? Well, I think you already know firsthand what happens because at some point, everybody listening to this video was once a child. And at some point, I'm guessing your parents made a decision for you rather than with you. And I'd like to take a moment right now. I'd like you to reflect back on what that experience was like. It might have been a time that you were prevented from doing something, perhaps because it was a punishment, some kind of arbitrary consequence for not doing something else, or you had something taken away from you, perhaps I don't know, an object of some kind, or an activity that you were enjoying doing and you were stopped doing that, or you were pushed into continuing to do something that you did not actually want to do. So I'll be quiet for just a moment while you think about a time that happened to you. Okay. And, just starting to think back, okay, what was that experience like for you? And when it happened, were you in a place to actually care about your parents' needs? I bet you weren't, but I bet you didn't start there. I bet you actually started out from wanting to care about both your needs and your parents' needs. But when the whoomph happened, it's sort of like, let's survive and get through this. And then, if you're like anything like me or any of the many people that I work with, there are then two options when the decision is made for you and not with you. You can either absorb it, suck it up, or you rebel against it. And this takes the form of whining, sneaking, lying, all sorts of other things. Those are typically the two responses. And I have two examples. I've got an example of each that came up at a workshop that I taught recently. Because what can happen from there? Because I think as parents, I see many parents thinking, oh, it's not such a big deal that I made this power over decision with my kid. They're not going to remember it. Okay, so the first was, so there was a woman who came to my workshop, and when I asked the question, what she recalled was how her parents were concerned about how she was using social media, and they insisted on having access to all of her communication going forward, but also going backwards. And to this day, she said that she thought it was utterly bonkers. She had always experienced herself and continues to experience herself as a very trustworthy, responsible person, even when she was a child. She couldn't believe her parents didn't see that their fear just took over them. They were completely taken over by fear. They looked at everything, and she experienced it as a complete and total invasion. And she has put up a wall between herself and them ever since. She's in her 30s now. So that's what the impact. So she absorbed it. Like, what was she going to do? Like her parents. So she took it. They had total control. They own everything in the house. They can, parents do. She was helpless in the situation to stop them. But she certainly didn't experience them as taking her needs into account. And from that place, why on earth would she be interested in, being curious about what their needs are? Okay, from the same workshop. So this was just absolutely devastating. So what happened to this mom was when she was a teenager, her parents were very strict and they wouldn't let her go and do the kind of socializing that she wanted to do. So she rebelled. She got herself a fake ID. She went to a club. She got caught. She got brought home in a police car. And for the next 6 months, her parents basically didn't let her out of the house unless it was to go to school. And what happened at the end of the 6 months? At the end of the 6 months, she was the age that she needed to be in order to be able, for the country that she was living in order to be able to assert her legal right to live where she wanted to live. And she moved hundreds of miles away and in with her sister. She moved away. And now she has a child of her own, and yet she sees herself, when it comes to screen time, acting in ways like her parents did. It's like she's using their playbook. She's not curious about what's going on for her child. She's imposing all sorts of rules that are not working for her child. Her child is completely rebelling and resisting. Trust is broken. There's huge animosity morning to night. And she feels she's helpless because, particularly after she realized the connection, she thought, oh my goodness, I'm repeating my parents' mistake. Why? Why on earth is this happening? So here's why it's happening, I believe. There are two reasons. One is that I don't see anywhere in schools the mechanics of how to make a decision with someone being taught. I don't see it taught anywhere. And there is a step-by-step process to make a decision with someone, even when you start out from completely different positions. You have wildly different strategies that you want to use. There is a step-by-step process, but it's not accessible to most people, and I've never seen it taught in a school. There are restorative justice circles, but that's typically what happens after the conflicts happen. How do we actually prevent a conflict? So we're not in a de-escalation situation, just how do we make a decision together? So that's not taught anywhere. So our parents don't have the skills, our grandparents didn't have the skills. Where on earth would we have learned these things? Okay. And then as if that's not going to stop, people from knowing how to do things, as if that's not hard enough, even when you know the mechanics of how to make a decision with someone, there are frequently, because we all have this baggage, there are things that happen and then there's our fear about wanting to do right by our children, and we have a system that makes it very, very difficult to do that, and there's all sorts of difficulties with that we then need support to actually use the system. And where's that support? So when we're lacking those things, what you get is all these parents that I've been working with who don't trust that their needs matter to their kids. And like I said, it's because I think the kids don't trust that the kids' needs actually matter to the parent, and the parent lacks the skills to make that clear and to show and demonstrate that. And then our children are going out into the world and they also lack these skills. So what can be done? Well, I am doing a family conflict transformation series. It's meeting for 4 weeks, and it not only is going to provide the mechanics of how to make a decision with someone. This can be, of course, it can be with your child. It could be with any family member. It could be with anyone, period. The principles apply. But there will also be time in this 4-week series to get the support for where things get tough, because the method that I teach is simple, but it is not easy. So there is also the support. And when I offered this workshop recently with these families who were all complaining about how they didn't trust that their kid cared about their needs, once we actually started to understand what the kids' needs were, all of a sudden all sorts of different possibilities emerged based on what the child's needs were. So in some situations, it was the child needed more rest. And so what we worked out was that they would basically sleep in their clothes so that they could wake up at the last possible minute. In some situations, it was that the child really wanted more companionship and fun in the morning. And so the solution then was a get dressed together song, and with accompanied by a song, paired with, there are some kids who just really don't want to go to school because they if they had their choice, they would not be going to school. School is not where they would be getting their education. So pairing that with an acknowledgement about what their experience is, that no, they actually don't want to go to this school. But what the challenges are, the constraints, which is why going to this school was the best option that the parent could come up with, and what the challenges are related to that. And in every instance, it's without fail. Once the child trusts that their needs matter, all of a sudden they're able to be really curious about what the parents' needs are. And that's true, I find, for everyone. When you know that you matter, don't you all of a sudden aren't you able, of course everyone mattered to you all along, but all of a sudden don't you have much more access to wanting to know what matters to the other person when you trust that you matter to them? And so as parents, it's such a huge gift we can give to our kids to not simply say, I love you and you're important, but to actually demonstrate that by being curious about what actually matters to them and meeting them where they are at, trusting that we're not going to let go of what matters to us, and trusting that they, once they feel met where they are actually going to be very curious to know what our needs are and want to integrate that into whatever decision we come up with. So if you have been challenged in any relationship in your family, this conflict transformation workshop series is for you. Or if you know somebody who has been struggling and perhaps doesn't trust that the other person cares about their needs, please let other people know about this workshop series as well. The link, all the information is in the description. All right, see you next time. Bye for now.